cases. To answer Meehan's challenge, they studied companies that jumped from average performance to sustained market-beating results, and then compared them to a group that failed to transcend mediocrity.
There were times when the team thought, we're just going to have nothing but chaos in the end. We have all this information, we had boxes of material, we would debate, we didn't know what it would mean, and there would just be a point of despair. We're going to do 5 years of research and not find anything.
But the effort paid off. They discovered 11 companies that averaged cumulative stock returns 6.9 times the general market in the 15 years following their transition points. In what became the most important aspect of their work, the researchers identified same industry comparison companies that failed to make the leap. The central question became, what principles explain why some companies went from good to great, while others, in nearly identical circumstances, did not? Their findings became the basis for the book.
You know those genetic twin studies where you find two kids and they were born with the same genetics and the same family, but then separated at birth? And then you find them later in life, and you rewind the tape and you learn about nature versus nurture. You take that same idea and apply it to organizations.
When the research was released in 2001, the business community responded with admiration. What was unanticipated was the speed with which leaders in other sectors adopted the good to great framework to help solve 21st century problems far removed from what the 11 companies were doing 25 or 30 years ago.
When I read Good to Great, I was fascinated because so many of the issues that came out of the book I could think could apply to policing. Overcoming obstacles, discipline, overcoming adversity. There was not a word about policing in the book, but it was all about policing from my perspective.
When the Dallas Morning News published a report showing that crime was out of control in America's 9th largest city, it shocked City Hall and triggered a transition in the police department that is still unfolding.
The findings were staggering. In crime, Dallas was the worst of any city over 1 million in the country. Number two, it also showed that the city was in the middle of the pack as far as what it spent on crime. That indicated they were not using their dollars very efficiently.
Prior to publication, the newspaper took the unprecedented step of first presenting its findings to city officials.
One assistant city manager took our report and literally threw it right back at us across the table. We gave the city council 3 or 4 opportunities to come talk to us about it. And then we published Sunday in one special section with a lot of promotion on page 1.
I think what it meant to the men and women of the department was kind of a confirmation of what many of them believed and felt by shedding light on some of the problems that gave an opportunity for improvement.
Within 2 months of the report's release, David Kunkel was hired as the new chief of police.
We have a city manager form of government, which is very unusual for the 9th largest city in America. Most big cities have a strong mayor form of government. And it was surprising to some of us when the manager ended up hiring a chief in our own backyard.
I think there was an expectation the city would search out a superstar, a known quantity.
And I thought, why go all across the country and do a major search only to find some guy in the backyard who no one's ever heard of locally, let alone nationally.
It was just kind of a letdown.
It was interesting because I thought I had a very good reputation and really thought that I would be very well received, but I wouldn't have been a candidate if I didn't think I could have been successful and effective.
Let me put on my glasses and make sure I did have prepared remarks, but I think...
He is extremely charismatically challenged.
I'm a quiet, shy person. I'm small in stature.
The first time I ever met him at his unveiling when he was announced to the world, I said, "Hi, I'm the mayor." And he looked at his shoes.
In most settings, I'll be the one standing in the corner with my hands in my pocket, being very uncomfortable.
And I thought, well, how can he be a police chief and have no presence and have no charisma, have social skill issues?
Kunkel will have to overcome officer morale, which is at an all-time low, and tackle a crime rate that just months ago was at an all-time high.
Kunkel began his tenure by quietly assessing his officers.
Kunkel came in and said, I want to talk to the officers. And he literally interviewed them, and he asked them to submit answers to questions that he wanted to review. And he sat up late at night for months and months and read all of these answers. And the officers thought it was very strange.
I think that the first concept I heard from the book was the concept of getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats, and that seemed to resonate.
Within 9 months of his taking over, after he put all the right people in place, he did an extraordinary thing. He stood up at a press conference and said, I'm going to get overall crime down by 10% next year and murder by 20%, and by God, that's what I'm going to do. And we all were shocked.
People thought he was nuts. He said, 10% drop in overall crime, 20% drop in homicide.
In pursuit of the goals, Kunkel keyed his leadership to getting the facts out into the open and using the daily meeting of command officers to analyze and deal with them.
Kunkel's very good about looking at the cold, hard, ugly facts and saying, murder's up this week, but by God, it's going to be down next week.
We're in an industry, policing, where you are confronted with the brutal facts all the time.
First up this morning, we have a homicide update.
The media covers us very aggressively. We have community leaders and activists.
We're having a problem with the homeless.
The city council that demands accountability.
We had 50 of the premises had alarms.
Suspect shot at the complainant with an assault rifle.
This morning at 5:30, we got a 4111 call.
Suspect opened the door up, shot multiple times.
Sometimes the brutal facts can beat you down, believing that you can't ever achieve any real progress.
You're saying, Mike, we don't have any suspect information other than the vehicle description at this time?
And so every single day, the first thing we do is look at the crime statistics for the day.
Southwest Patrol is currently down 47 offenses versus last year. In the 28-day time period, we are
And what's happened the previous day and previous week and previous month.
We've knocked that down where we were up.
And what can we do to reduce those numbers? Then it's allowed us to communicate to our officers so they can more clearly understand what their mission is and how they should be spending their time.
Chief Kunkel has brought accountability to the department, and that is exactly what those Thursday morning meetings have done.
The traffic stops relate directly to the crime rate.
The crime rate going down.
Crime rate going down if the traffic stops are going up.
He's a very secure person. He surrounds himself with strong people, which was a change at the police department.
How do they know which ones are the multiple offense locations, Nancy? Would they know that at all?
I think the appointment of David Brown as his top assistant is a good indication. Brown is a strong leader.
What I heard is your guys pretty much do self-initiated or they get it from narcotics. Quite frankly, my promotion sent a great message to this organization. If you perform well, you'll be rewarded. Who's the community policing officer for that area?
Rex Jones, and he is here.
We feel that our performance makes a difference, that officers in an area can make a difference. Previously, were you engaged with them on their calendars when they would have meetings and when they would need officers there? No, sir. What we brought to this meeting was that accountability, specifically asking those officers